The body is a biological computer, and it allows us to experience this reality, but if that becomes the sense of who we are, we shut out that, and then big time we are open to control. We talk about a computer when it won't work and won't switch on. We say, my computer's dead. Well, when we die, we don't die. The computer ceases to function, and the true self goes on living its infinity. There is no death. And what do you do when your computer, oh, my computer's broken down, it won't work. What are you going to do? I'm going to get another computer. Reincarnation. So, then you have computers going into sleep mode. Well, so do we. Well, we tick over on very, very little energy, except me last night. I never slept a bloody wink. And then you have the antivirus systems in computers, which are seeking out threats to the operating system to give them a smack and stuff them out. We have a fantastically advanced one called the human immune system. And what happens when a new virus in the computer world comes and your antivirus technology is not used to it, it can get through and destroy the operating system. What happens when people like Europeans took smallpox to North America and the Native Americans, they went down like 9 pins because their antivirus, their immune system was not used to that. Same thing, just more advanced. The DNA is the human body computer's central processing unit, CPU, or rather hard drive. The brain is the CPU. It's the hard drive that holds the genetic blueprint. And therefore, when you have people, and there are some doctors that have studied this, I know one in particular who's done a lot of research on it, they found that when people have had heart transplants, particularly heart transplants, funnily enough, but transplants of lungs and other organs, they have taken on not just the characteristics, personality-wise, of the donor, but also aptitudes and gifts, like suddenly they can paint well and they didn't before. And people are going, why? This is a mystery. No, it's not a mystery. What is downloaded from the donor to the receiver is information, which is now available to the receiving operating system and can influence the aptitudes, thoughts, and actions of that system. And this is the CPU, the brain, the central processing unit, which processes information, but the whole genetic system is processing information, and this, in its true power, is the biggest processor of information. And this is an enhanced picture taken at the Necker Hospital in Paris, where they put tracer dye into acupuncture points in, the acupuncture healing system. And I looked at that and I thought, that's a motherboard. And it's interesting because what's passing through these meridian lines is what the Chinese call qi. It goes back thousands of years. And what they found is when the qi energy passing through these lines is not moving at optimum speed, it's too fast or it's too slow, then there is manifest in that body a mental or emotional or physical dis-ease, disharmony. And of course, what happens when a virus hits a computer? What's the first thing we see? Hey, my computer's ever so slow today. Yes, because the information is not passing round to optimum, so the computer is malfunctioning. The information is not passing around the body to optimum, the body computer is malfunctioning, which we call dis-ease. And what acupuncture is doing with the needles and various other techniques is balancing this flow of qi information to restore that harmony. So someone like Dogma, what do you think of that, Dogma? Oh, rubbish, rubbish! How can you put a needle in a toe to cure a headache? It's ridiculous. Okay, let me just take you through that, darling. These lines go around the body. They are circuits. And if the circuit affecting the head and causing the headache is blocked in the toe, Dogma, it's no bloody use putting a needle in the head, mate, is it? Is it, really? No. And that's the other thing. Computers and computer viruses, what are they? They are rogue information. They are rogue information that distorts the information balance and harmony of the computer operating system and thus distort the way it operates. When it happens in human beings, we call that illness and disease. Distorted information. That is what this is. That's what this is. They are distorting the operating system, the human body, so it will not read reality in its true potential sharpness and clarity. Therefore, here, in the holographic world of the conscious mind, we see food additives, stuff in water like fluoride, and all the crap that goes in kids' sodas and sweets and candies, all that stuff. But if you take that down to its base state, these are all vibrational information fields of great distortion, and thus they are distorting the information balance of the body, and that's how food additives and additives to water and all the other stuff cause mental, emotional and physical dis-ease. And they're doing it on purpose, and they're doing it on purpose because they are freaking insane. And so, this white, black, sky blue, bloody pink, I don't give a damn, it's just a vehicle for experiencing this reality. And thus, it is like a spacesuit, a genetic spacesuit in a way, that allows you to experience a certain reality that you otherwise couldn't in your another state. And that's why this is, in terms of understanding reality, the ultimate freaking idiocy. Racism. Racism is making a statement or judging somebody by the vehicle, their infinite consciousness. By the way, the same infinite consciousness that you doing the judging is part of. It's hilarious. Because of their spacesuit, their genetic spacesuit. It's like two spacemen on the moon, and one is prejudiced against another one because his spacesuit is a different colour and was made by a different bloody company in some other bloody country. We would say that is ludicrous, but that is racism. It's ludicrous, it is idiocy. What we call humans is a software program. It's a software program, a certain software program that allows a certain experience within a certain range of frequencies. And the different races are just sub-software programs of the greater base software program. We should be celebrating uniqueness, not scorning it. More the bloody merrier, I say. I've seen racial supremacists, and they're not all bloody white either. I'll tell you, you don't have to be white to be a racist. But I've seen racial supremacists, and I think if you're the bloody master race, I'd rather be like I am, thank you very much. Bloody hell. And DNA just turns out to be a software program. Of course it is, because it's part of the software program we call human. The San Francisco Chronicle did an article on DNA. It said DNA is a universal software code. From bacteria to humans, the basic instructions for life are written with the same language. You know, the difference in the codes, A, C, G, and T, my codes actually are quite unique. They're G and T, G and T, G and T. People watching around the world, that's gin and tonic, by the way. But A, C, G, and T, and how these four codes are in relation to each other decides what your outer form is. And the difference between a rat and a human in terms of the DNA coding is ludicrously small compared with the difference in the outer form. In fact, if you're a politician, it's even bloody closer, apparently. You know what I mean? Yeah. And DNA is something else. Brings us back to the cosmic internet. It is a receiver-transmitter of information. And if you know that, and the target population doesn't, my goodness me, the manipulation potential is just infinite. So DNA is a receiver-transmitter of information. Now, you would expect crystalline input into something that's a receiver-transmitter. It just turns out that the human body is massively crystalline. The membrane of every cell, and we have trillions of them, is a liquid crystal. The Earth is massively crystalline. Every grain of sand is a crystal. And they use crystalline rock at the big vortex points, the ancient adepts did, going way back, because they were points of receiving, transmitting information when they understood the greater self and the greater reality more than many people today. And DNA is crystalline. It is a receiver-transmitter. This is an article on DNA that I came across. From the characteristic form of this giant molecule, a wound double helix, the DNA represents an ideal electromagnetic antenna. On one end, it is elongated and thus a blade which can take up very well electrical pulses. On the other hand, seen from above, it has the form of a ring and thus is a very magnetical antenna. Now, what if you knew this and you could manipulate from that knowledge, without the knowledge of the target population, what frequencies that DNA was transmitting and receiving on? If you could dictate that, you would squeeze, brackets visible light, the perception range of the target population into a tiny band, which will be very relevant in part 2. So we have mind-body, which is the holographic body and the lower auric field, body-mind. And the mind energetic level and the greater self connects into the body through these vortex points, people call chakras, it's wheels of light in the Sanskrit language. And it connects into the body through the endocrine system of glands. Now, two very, very important glands in the endocrine system that take us beyond the illusion into the greater reality are the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, which are part of the system that has become known as the third eye. What a surprise that one of the major effects of fluoride in the water and in the toothpaste is to calcify the pineal gland and thus stop it functioning as a greater self connector with a greater reality. They want to hold us in the five senses. That's why all these things are targeted. And the people, you know, putting the stuff in, they haven't got a clue. It's just their job. Oh, I don't know, not a reason why. I'm talking about those that are dictating that it happens in the first place. So we're living a false identity. That's why we are enslaved. We think we're men and women. Well, we are. It's an experience. It's a nice experience to be a man, nice experience to be a woman. There's different experiences. That's fair enough. But if we start identifying man and woman being who we are rather than what we're experiencing, then again we get caught in the illusion. How can men or women be what we are when through hormonal changes, i.e. vibrational changes here, information changes, you can go from a man to a woman, like that chicken a few years ago, freaky, that had that massive explosion of testosterone and went from a hen to a cockerel chasing the hens because of a chemical change. It's just a vehicle, it's not who we are. Same with our emotions, you know. Oh yes, it's my emotions, that's who I am. Well, how can they necessarily be what you are when you can be massively affected emotionally by chemical input? There was that woman a few years ago in all the papers who was a clinical depressive for 40 years, went into clinical depression out of nowhere, couldn't understand it, in institutions, out of institutions for 40 years, and someone asked her, interesting question, a relevant question, can you remember anything that happened just before this happened? And they said, well, the only thing I can remember is I had 19 tooth fillings with mercury. So then she had a mercury detox after having the fillings taken out and changed, and 40 years of clinical depression disappeared. And she would have said for 40 years, I'm a clinical depressive. No! That's a malfunction of your operating system. It's not who you are. So, it's a question that's worth asking. If the world's not solid, what's going on? Because it bloody seems so solid, doesn't it? Well, yes, it does. I grant you that. I mean, all these things look very, very solid, and if you bang your head against them, it hurts. But if you walk through fire, you get burned. If you believe you get burned, and you walk through fire in another state of awareness and you don't get burned. We are decoding the solidity. It's part of the process that we are going through to create this reality. Quantum physics has long shown this reality is not solid and can't be solid. They say it's made of atoms. Well, atoms have no solidity. As someone said, quite rightly, that if you take the nucleus of an atom to be the size of a 10-cent piece, then the atom would have to be about the size of a cathedral. And the rest would be empty space. Actually, it's not empty space. It's just a packet of bloody energy. And you know, when you put a disk in a computer, as the decoding process goes on to put it on a screen, certain processes happen. This thing that they call atoms is just one of the processes to turn vibrational information through electrical into digital and holographic. We live in a holographic world, illusory physical. And this is very, very important, because if you think the world is solid, what is solid? What's solid another word for? Limitation. I can't. Once you realize it's fluid and you can play with it, once you start to awaken to it, then limitation starts to be diluted. They don't want people with diluted limitation. They want people with a perception of total limitation. So this is a studio where they make holograms. Basically, there's a laser. They break it into two sides. One goes onto a photographic print. One goes onto the print and bounces on, collides with that part of the laser, having taken on, in effect, vibrationally, the image that they want to holographically take a picture of. And so what happens on the photographic print is you have what they call in holographics, here we go, waveform, a waveform interference pattern. And it's basically like dropping two pebbles in a pond, and the waveforms go out from that, and as they collide, that is a waveform representation of where those pebbles dropped, how big they were, how fast they dropped. All those things are encoded in that waveform. If you could decode it, it would tell you that. And this is a holographic waveform on a holographic print. Looks like a fingerprint. I would suggest that's absolutely not an accident. Anyway, all you do then, because that is waveform information. It is another version of the waveform construct of the whole universe, which plays out into this by decoding it. And then when you decode this by firing a laser at it, amazing things happen. Apparently three-dimensional images appear. And they look as solid as you and me, but you can put your hand through them because they're illusions. There again is the print, fire a laser at it, bingo, there's a three-dimensional image. These are all holograms. Another hologram, another hologram. Oh, God, if only. But I'll talk about her after we've had a bit of lunch. Yes, I've lost my knighthood, you know. I've lost my knighthood. It was the Satanism at Balmoral that did it in the end. That was the clincher. Anyway, this is a guy on a stage in Melbourne. This is a guy on this stage in Adelaide, and he is a holographic projection. They're using more and more holograms in all these different ways. There's an Elvis hologram there. That's CNN playing with holograms. And thus, this physical world that seems so solid is actually a decoded reality through the digital to the holographic. I mean, you know, you can look at a computer game and the best of them look real solid when you're looking at the screen. It's just information being decoded. The world is holographic, of the conscious mind. In 2009, after I've been talking about this and writing about this for years, I came across this New Scientist magazine, centre of mainstream science in Britain magazine, from 2009, and the front cover was, "You are a hologram projected from the edge of the universe." Because some mainstream scientists even now are seeing that the cul-de-sacs exist for all the mainstream explanations for reality. They go nowhere. There has to be another explanation, and a number of them are now going into the holographic level. But we're not. It's not a hologram projected from the edge of the universe. It's not. It's a hologram being decoded from information that pervades the frickin' universe. That's what it is. And there's this other thing about this question that many scientists have, when they've seen that something can take a waveform and a particle form at the same time. How is that possible? Well, let's look at the hologram. When you have your holographic print, your information construct in waveform, and you decode it with the laser and it projects the three-dimensional illusory physical image, then you have the physical and you have the waveform at the same time. Not only that, they have to exist at the same time, because that is merely a projection from that. Take away that, you take away that. And the other great thing is, it explains so much, this one. The other great thing about holograms is that every part of a hologram is a smaller version of the whole. Thus, if you take a holographic print and you cut it into 4 and fire the laser at each one, you do not get a quarter part of the picture, you get a quarter-size version of the whole picture. So every part of a hologram is a smaller version of the whole. Yes, the smaller you go, the less clarity you get, but it's still a smaller version of the whole, and that's what this is. Reflexology and acupuncture and other alternative ways of healing can find places on the hands and the feet where they can treat organs and other parts of the body, because the feet, the ear, the hand are just smaller parts of the body hologram. Therefore, there is a connection between them fundamentally, and if you treat the smaller part of the hologram, you affect the whole hologram. This is why acupuncture can find, reflexology can find these points on the ear, for instance, which represent all different parts of the body. And palm reading and all that stuff is from this, because in that hand is information from the entire body. So we have as above, so below. We have the human energy field in the smaller part of the hologram, and we have the earth energy field in the greater part of the hologram. We have the hologram, again, expressed there in the brain cell and the universe. And as William Blake, in a greater part of that poem, to see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. A pinhead and infinity are the same thing. This is just one point, literally, within the greater ocean. And this is what we are, a point of attention within the greater ocean. And again, scientists have said, how can particles communicate when they're billions of miles apart and communicate instantly? Answer, they are not billions of miles apart. They are expressions of the one infinite whole, and thus, when they move as the one infinite whole, their communication must be instant, because there is actually no space between them. And then, dogmas. Dogma's got a fret on now. Astrology. Astrology! Freaks! Rubbish! Well, let's have a look what astrology is. We see planets and stuff like that moving around. But if we go back to the waveform construct from which everything comes, this is just the holographic decoded level of them, they are information fields. And as they move through the greater information field, they are impacting cosmic internet, posting, receiving, upon the greater field. We interact with that greater field. So as the planets move, the information fields move, and affect the greater field, they are influencing us. And if we are locked into a certain point in this cycle, then we take on a different expression of that universal field when we connect with it, what we call birth. Some people say, you know, when we are first created, and before the birth process happens. But therefore, we take on a different field, part of the universal field. So as we go through life, we are going to be influenced and be affected by the greater changes in the greater field as the planets move around and go into their conjunctions and stuff, than someone who comes in at a different point and therefore takes on a different expression of that field. It's all energy interacting with each other, information interacting with each other. And when you take the holographic nature of reality, never mind the greater consciousness, even at the level of the body, We are a smaller version of the universe. Because the universe is holographic, therefore we are a smaller version of the universe. We've come a bloody long way from Charlie Smith driving his bus and Ethel Jones at the store that they want us to believe we are. Then there's the digital level. This is another level which can explain a lot of things. Then now, this is getting closer and closer to our reality now, our experienced reality. They're now creating digital holograms. This is a mainstream media report about them, and it says, and they look real, so real that when Ford used a digital hologram to show off a car concept model, people stopped, afraid to walk into it. They thought the holographic car was really there. That car is a hologram. It's not solid, but just appears so. This digital hologram has taken it even further. Now, what are numbers? What is this digital level? It's the digital level of the universe that numerology comes in to. Because all these different levels, the waveform, the electrical, the digital and the holographic, are all expressions of the same information. They just express themselves differently, but it's the same information. So these numbers at the digital level are number expressions of vibrational information states. And the ancients, when they used to build their buildings, and they used to build them under this sacred geometry, as they call it, with pi, golden mean, the Fibonacci sequence that you find throughout nature, they knew that if they got the digital, they call it that, the numbers right, the mathematics right, then they were bringing into that building certain information vibrational states, because that is just a reflection of that. If you get the numbers right, you create vibrational information here that expresses that, or it goes the other way. And they understood that. So get the numbers right, you get the information in the building you're building right. And they are expressing A, C, G, and T, the codes of DNA, now as binary codes, on-off electrical charges. Where do you find them? In computers. And so, what does this all mean? I'm not sure, but we'll see. What does all this mean? It means we're living a false identity. And it's that false identity that holds us in servitude. We think we're humans, which is an experience. What we are is infinite awareness having that experience. And once we self-identify with the experience, instead of with I am all that is ever can be, then we're pulled into the matrix, we're pulled into the illusion, we're pulled into enslavement. You can see on the lower levels of the greater self now, this technology that can capture these energy fields. And of course, near-death experiencers who've left the holographic level have experienced some of these other levels that I'm talking about, and some of these other states beyond the illusion. And I studied this a lot for many years during my research, and the common themes that people repeat are incredible. This is one that encapsulates everything that I've been talking about, a near-death experience telling of what happened to him. He said, everything from the beginning, my birth, my ancestors, my children, my wife, everything comes together simultaneously. I saw everything about me and about everyone who was around me. I saw everything they were thinking now, what they thought then, what was happening before, what was happening now. There is no time. There is no sequence of events. No such thing as limitation of distance, of period, of place. I could be anywhere I wanted to be simultaneously. That is who we are, and that is what the control system is desperate for us not to remember. And when we get caught in the telescope, in the lens, we can get caught in the illusion of time and space. And massively involved in that are the two hemispheres of the brain. This is a big thing in terms of the way we're controlled and enslaved. There are two hemispheres of the brain, the left and right, and then there is this bridge, corpus callosum, that's supposed to be the means through which they talk to each other. They have very, very different personalities, very, very different ways of decoding reality. Ideal, we are whole brain people and get the best of both. Goal of the control system, stick them in the left brain, shut the right brain down. So the left side of the brain is logical in its version of logic, and it is sequential. What it does is take happenings in the now and it puts them in a sequence. And we call this sequence time. And the faster it moves the sequence, the faster time seems to be passing. The slower it moves the sequence, the slower time seems to be passing. Thus, when you are in a situation you don't like, oh, time's passing so slow. Situation you love, oh my goodness, is that the time? It's flown today. It's because the sequence is being put together in a different experiential way. That's time. Oh my goodness me. No, it's the left side of the brain. It's, this is the big one. It looks at things in parts. The left side of the brain sees everything as apart from everything else. It doesn't see pictures, it sees dots. It doesn't connect dots, it sees dots. And that's what they want. Is one of the reasons they want is in the left side of the brain. The right side of the brain is intuitive. The right side of the brain and the heart are very, very, very much connected. It is holistic, and it looks at wholes. It sees the connections between things. That's why they don't want right-brain people. And this is a Mercedes-Benz advertisement, funnily enough, giving a symbolic feel for the two sides of the brain. This is the left side of the brain. Oh, I'm ever so boring, but I love structure. I love hierarchy. I love lessons. Oh, exams. I love them. I love them. And this is this guy. Hey, chill, man. Hey, let's do a painting here. That's good. Oh, yes. What we want is both. Because you get people who are really right-brained and they can't function in this world. We need both. And this is a Neil Haig depiction of the two hemispheres of the brain. This is the structure. This is the hierarchy. This is the world that we live in. Because humanity and that which runs the institutions has been turned into prisoners of the left brain, that's why our society is a left-brain society. And it rewards left-brain people. You know, if you go to school and you take information into the left brain and you hold it and then you spew it out at exam time, you pass. Oh, he's ever so clever. No, he's got a good memory and his left brain is functioning very well. But you're a kid who's more whole-brained and looking at it from another perspective, and he'll look at this information, boom, 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 and he'll whip it over there, and he'll look at it, and he'll go, it's a piece of shit. And then he's punished. He don't pass his exams, and he whips it over to the left brain under pressure. A lot of them do, and conform because it's easier that way, and a lot of people don't. Hello, is that Mrs. Jones? Yeah, it's about Johnny. Is a problem. What's happening? He's asking questions and all want to do it. Oh my God, don't do that. You know, Gareth, I'm so proud of Gareth because who was singing for us today, because he didn't mess about when he went to school. He didn't get C's. He didn't get D's. He got E's, right? And because he couldn't give a shit. And 30 years later, he's an incredibly intelligent man, right? And here's another Neil Haig depiction. What this system is set up to do, therefore, and what I've just described is part of it, is to firewall off the left side of the brain and keep right-brain people out. And left-brain people, therefore, are very suspicious of right-brain people. He's a bit of a bloody loony, he is, and all that stuff. This is the artist. This is the maverick. This is the visionary. This is the one that can see beyond the illusion. But they want the focus of attention in the left side of the brain. And this is Jill Bolte-Taylor. She's a brain scientist. And she had a stroke in the left side of the brain in 1996, one morning, and as the stroke was happening, she was getting more and more outside of this reality that we call the real world. And what was happening is that her left side of the brain was no longer decoding reality as it should because it was malfunctioning. Suddenly, her hands didn't look like hands anymore. There was no point where her body ended and the rest of the room started. It was one energy field. She, in her words, lost 37 years of emotional baggage because the baggage was in the operating system and it was no longer being decoded, thus she wasn't experiencing it. And she said that during this stroke, when it was happening, she didn't realize it was a stroke for a while. She actually remained conscious for a lot of time, which is why she was able to retell the experience. And she said at one point, she's trying to call work to get some help. But she gets the business cards. She's trying to see the number, because she can't remember the number. But she can't see numbers. All she can see is digital squiggles. Why? Because the left side of the brain had stopped decoding through the digital into the holographic, and thus she'd gone back to the digital, and she was seeing that level of reality. And then she eventually, she had waves of clarity every now and again, which allowed her to go forward. After 45 minutes, she managed to ring work. So she rings work, and the guy must have picked it up and said hello, or something like that, and all she heard at the other end was woof, woof, woof. And she said, I said to him, it's Jill, I'm in trouble. She's sure as hell, she said, I said, it's Jill, I'm in trouble. But all she heard herself say was woof, woof, woof. Why? Because the vibrational information she was hearing from herself, the vibrational information coming from the guy at the other end, was no longer being decoded accurately through to words that she understood. It was being distorted, thus she wasn't hearing it, because she only hears it when the brain decodes it. This is a guy called Stephen Wilshire. Became very well known. He's what they call an autistic savant. They find it very difficult often to interact with this world, but they have brilliant, brilliant gifts. And he became well known because the BBC flew him up into a helicopter over London for something like 30 minutes without a notepad, or not that it would bloody helped. And he just looked out the window, and he came back and he drew London from the air with incredible accuracy, even getting the number of windows in major buildings correct. And this is another autistic savant called Daniel Tammet, and he's got a computer-like way of filtering and decoding numbers, and also learns languages in a ridiculously short time, including amazingly difficult languages like Icelandic. He went on to an Icelandic television program 1 week and was challenged to come back the following week speaking fluent Icelandic, and he did it. And his language teacher said, this man's not human. Oh, yes, he is. He's the human that we should be if this control system was not suppressing us as it is. And so what the left side of the brain would do is go, Sam, yeah, Sam, team, yeah, that's right. What the right side of the brain does, which is where these are coming from massively, it goes, gotcha. When Stephen Wilshire is looking out the helicopter, he's not going, oh, that's got one bit, start, hold it, one window to, no. His right side of his brain is going, gotcha. The lot, picture. That's who we really are, and they are expressing fantastic gifts to give us a reminder of who we really are. They are capturing or accessing deeper levels of infinite potential, which people are not doing when they're held in the five senses. We worship the intellect. Boom, boom. Have you noticed? Not by accident. They're putting kids through what you might call academic type subjects, boom, left brain, earlier and earlier. You know why? Because letting kids play and play and play is ad-lib, it's creative, it's imagination. Boom, boom, boom. They don't want that. They want them in here as early as possible. Kids shouldn't be going to bloody school at that age. They should be playing the wonder of the bloody world. Compared with consciousness, compared with the heart innate intelligence, this is the village bloody idiot, but we worship it. This is the isolated intellect. That's why the world's bloody mad. This is what the isolated intellect does. It puts you in these minute little bubbles of awareness, consciousness or mind, all that is or little me. Free yourself, not just free your mind, free ourselves from mind and the diktats of mind. Blank sheet of paper. Okay, from this moment, all my preconceived idea got to earn its place on this piece of paper by information, evidence, insight. I'm not going to put anything on this paper because you, mother, father, you teacher, you scientist, you politician, you bloody journalist have told me I should. I'm deciding what goes on my piece of paper because I am a unique expression of all that is. And I'm not you, I am me. Open your mind, open your heart, get into this in a big way later. And when you open your heart and you open your mind, you access the universal field beyond the illusion, and bingo, massive insights and understandings come pouring in. Not because you're a chosen one, not because you're special, not because you are Jesus who's come to save the world, but because you just opened yourself to that which is available to anyone who wants to open themselves to it. All possibility, infinite love is the only truth. Everything else is illusion. And this fork on the road, are we going to go with the head, which has got us into this bloody mess, or are we going to go with the heart, which takes another look at everything? Or even better, are we going to bring them together so they work as one unit in unison and we get the best of both? Consciousness or clones, that's the fork on the road. And when we open ourselves to the greater awareness, we start to hear and dance to the music of the universe that is screaming at us, listen, dance. I can't hear, I can't dance, I've got to go to work, I've got to go to school. And John Milton said, those who danced were thought to be quite insane by those who could not hear the music. Those who are closed to the music, oh my God, it's so sad. They think you're crazy because you can hear what they can't hear, and thus you see and experience and behave in ways that they cannot understand. It's not that one is right or wrong, it's that one is coming from a different sense of reality. William Blake, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would be appear to man as it is, infinite. The conspiracy wants to make sure those doors to perception are never cleansed. And they do it through manipulation of our perceptions, through words, through religion, through education, through food additives that distort the brain and rewire it. And George Carlin, the great George Carlin, American comedian, he said, they don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interests. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 years ago. That's what they don't want. And what, as I come to the end of this first part, what we have been subjected to, not just these generations, but for generations untold, is a gigantic hoax. A hoax that has sold us a fake reality, a fake version of how we should live our lives, and thus they have enslaved infinite awareness in a perception of little me. And here's a short video. It is absolutely brilliant, and it encapsulates the point I'm making here. This is fantastic.
In music, one doesn't make the end of the composition the point of the composition. If that were so, the best conductors would be those who play fastest. And there would be composers who wrote only finales. People go to concerts just to hear one crashing chord, because that's the end. But we don't see that as something brought by our education into our everyday conduct. We've got a system of schooling that gives a completely different impression. It's all grade, and what we do is we put the child into the corridor of this grade system with a kind of, come on, kitty, 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 And yeah, you go to kindergarten, you know, and that's a great thing because when you finish that, you get into first grade.
Woo!
And then come on, first grade leads to second grade and so on, and then you get out of grade school, you go to high school, and it's revving up, the thing is coming. Then you're going to go to college, and by Jove, then you get into graduate school, and when you're through with graduate school, you go out to join the world. And then you get into some racket where you're selling insurance. And they've got that quota to make. And you're going to make that. And all the time, the thing is coming. It's coming. It's coming. That great thing, the success you're working for. Then when you wake up one day about 40 years old, you say, my God, I've arrived. I'm there. And you don't feel very different from what you always felt. And there's a slight letdown because you feel there's a hoax. And there was a hoax. A dreadful hoax. They made you miss everything. We thought of life by analogy with a journey, with a pilgrimage, which had a serious purpose at the end, and the thing was to get to that end, success or whatever it is, or maybe heaven after you're dead. But we missed the point the whole way along. It was a musical thing, and you were supposed to sing or to dance while the music was being played.
Exactly. That is so brilliant. That's so brilliant. So, we're back to the little question. Why? Why is it like that? Why is the hoax? Who's behind the hoax? It's a multi-level conspiracy. Who is controlling our sense of reality? Well, the rabbit hole goes so deep in answering that question. And in part two, when we've had a break for an hour for some lunch, and we'll be back absolutely on an hour, because I've got so much to get through today, I will be going, in my experience anyway, deeper in the rabbit hole than has gone before in seeing where this is all coming from. And that's the end of part one. See you in an hour. Thank you very much. Thank you.
This break is for 1 hour. Please feel free to get food and drinks from the foyer during this time, but please remember the show will restart in precisely 1 hour. David Icke was changed forever in 1991 after a series of extraordinary experiences amid the ancient sights and stunning landscapes of Peru. What happened set him on an incredible journey that's brought mass ridicule, dismissal, but ultimately recognition that he has something unique to say about the world, the nature of reality, and the forces that manipulate and dictate the direction of human society. David Icke returned to Peru follows the incredible places that he visited on that first momentous trip, plus many more. A group from around the world went with him to the breathtaking Machu Picchu, Lake Titicaca, and other locations and power centers in this incredible country.